Believe in Bigfoot, Dogman, any cryptid? Are you skeptical?
Curious about the supernatural, conspiracy theories, the unknown? Then come join us as we explore facts, tall tales, and encounters on Creatures and Curiosities.
Hello and welcome to Creatures and Curiosities. I'm David.
And I'm Jake.
And we are just a few days here before Christmas.
Yeah.
We finally moved into our studio, and it's not quite done yet.
Not quite done yet. Nope.
So we have no acoustic panels on the walls, so if it sounds a little echoey or a little bit different, that's why.
Yep. But it's nice.
It is nice.
Yeah.
Still got a lot of other equipment to move in here, but it's comfortable. It's cold outside in Montana right now and windy as can be today. But yeah, we got a whole new, what's that thing called? Like a mini split system or something that keeps it nice and toasty in here. What about plans for Christmas? You got anything going aside from coming over on Christmas Eve with the kids?
We'll be with you Christmas Eve for the kids. And then, Christmas, we'll do the usual. The wife will cook homemade cinnamon rolls and
nice.
Fry up some bacon and sausage. And
I like it.
Then open presents and watch a bunch of Christmas movies.
Yeah, got everything, all the decorations up, everything wrapped.
Oh, yeah. She had that done, I think, the day after Thanksgiving.
Oh, yeah.
Well, not the presents wrapped, but all the decorations were up for Christmas.
Yeah, so the typical wife.
Yep.
As soon as, actually, my wife is like, Halloween's over, so it's time to put the tree up. But this year we didn't get to it.
And she'll do her best to keep the tree through January if I let her,
Yeah, we usually take ours down around April.
Yeah, exactly.
But, I think there's a lot of families in the same boat.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I know a lot of people will put the Christmas tree up like on Christmas Eve and they decorate it. And it's like, what the heck? That's such a waste of your time. Because then they pull it down, like the day after Christmas. It's like, what's the point?
And we always do a real tree. And so I like the smell of the Christmas tree in the house. It just makes it more
Did you go
seasonal.
chop your own down then?
No, I was lazy.
Okay.
So which I should have done because it was like $120 for a Christmas tree, which is outlandish, but it's huge. Yeah. It's like 9 feet. So it's kind of nice. Yeah, it's a big one.
That is nice. I know here in Montana, they do a $5 pass to go into the National Forest System as long as you're 50 feet off the roadway or something.
Yeah. And that's probably what I should start doing. It's not really a lazy thing. It's more of a time thing.
Yeah.
We got to drive. The drive just to get there is an hour and a half.
Yeah.
So that's 3 hours round trip. Not to mention finding the tree. That's a whole day, which is not a big deal, but I got stuff to do. So.
You remember a few years back, we went way out in the Gallatin National Forest, and which isn't that far from our house. It's only like a 30-minute drive. But by the time we went, took some fire road, and of course it's like 3 feet deep in snow, and I'm sliding all over the place. We get up there, there's grizzly tracks, huge grizzly tracks, and a bunch of elk tracks, So I'm like, well, we are obviously in bear territory right now because these look fresh, The snow hadn't melted around them yet. So we walked around, and I felt like a scene from Christmas Vacation.
Oh, yeah.
My wife sees this Christmas tree, and she's like, that's the one I want right there. And I'm like, honey, that thing's huge. And she's like, no, it's not. Look around. And I'm like, yeah, but you're in the forest. So, a 20-foot tree looks small when it's next to the 80-footers. Yeah. And she's like, no, it's fine. It'll be fine, really. So I chopped this thing down.
Yeah.
I felt like Chevy Chase.
It's going in our living room, Russ.
It's going in our living room. Get the sap all over your hands, and stuff. So I load this thing up, and we're driving out of there, basically sliding off the road.
Oh, yeah.
It was probably the most treacherous drive I've ever done. And I was terrified because we're coming down out of the mountain. So we're going downhill on ice and snow.
Yeah, there's no braking.
There's no brakes.
You got to ride it out.
And so we get to an area where it's relatively safer, I guess, even though the roads are still icy. We get home, and of course, I was right. The tree is not going to fit in this house, no matter what. So I'm out there with a chainsaw, that night, cutting off the last 8 feet of the bottom end of it. I bring it in the house, and kind of like that scene where he cuts the rope when the tree limbs smash the windows out.
Little full, a lot of sap.
Yeah, a lot of sap. That's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't have it wrapped, but I dragged it into the house, and I'm just scratching the walls and everything else. So we set it up in the living room, and it was up against the wall and up against the fireplace. This thing was just massive. And then all I could think of was there's got to be a squirrel in here too, because it was just literally a scene from Christmas
It's like
Vacation.
a funny squeaking sound.
But anyway, that was our Christmas a few years back. I'm sure you remember that tree because everybody that walked in, you just kind of were stunned.
Yeah.
That this thing took up the entire living room. There was no place to even sit.
Yeah.
But anyway, my wife loved that tree.
Yep. And that's, if they could have that every year, they would.
It's all that matters.
Yeah,
is,
exactly.
They're happy. And then, of course, you're picking up dead pine needles
every day
for the next 6 months.
And the animals are getting in it. So when
carpet.
they brush against it, it falls off more.
Yeah. Yeah, the cat's always in there hitting the balls, the Christmas ornaments falling everywhere and smashing in the carpet. Yeah, Christmas has always been quite the treat for most men.
Well, that's our thing too, is we got, we have the presents wrapped, but we have to keep them hidden in the rooms.
Yeah.
Because the cat goes and starts chewing at the tape.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like, I don't want it to ruin for the kids. I don't want them to see what they're getting.
You have good kids. My kids, they were always in there with a razor blade cutting the tape so that you couldn't tell that they opened it to see what it looked like, and then they reseal them. And then, many years you'd come out and the packages are wet because the dog peed all over them. It's like, my God, I live in hell. But anyway, speaking of Christmas and speaking of hell, our episode in honor of Christmas and not the religious aspect of Christmas, because let's face it, Christmas is about Christ.
Yep. Birth of Christ. That's right.
Birth of Christ. But this is a cryptid, unexplained conspiracy theory kind of a podcast. Yeah. So we won't be talking about Christ. We're going to be talking about Krampus.
Yep.
Krampus being, of course, the evil side of Christmas.
Yes.
It had its purpose, just like many of the lores that we've discussed that talked about, people taking too much, right? Or bad behavior,
bad kids,
or whatever, breaking Lent and on and on and on. So when you look at a lot of these lores, a lot of them are literally based on scaring people into submission.
Yep.
Rougarou. You definitely don't want to break Lent and have Mr. Cajun Werewolf show up in your house.
Yeah, exactly.
And if you take too much from the forest or, whatever it was. So Krampus basically was designed in the same fashion, that he was scaring children into good behavior throughout the year.
Right.
Now, in the Americas, we say the same kind of thing, right? Like, if you're not good, Santa's going to put coal in your stocking or whatever. It's
a nicer version of what they got.
It's a much nicer version, because Krampus was way beyond a punisher.
Yeah.
And so we'll get into that. So the first time I heard about Krampus was in the early 1970s. I'm in high school and I'm taking my foreign language, which was required back then. I don't even know if it is anymore for kids, but
I don't know nowadays. I mean, they don't have to do cursive nowadays.
So. Yeah, they don't have to do anything.
Yeah.
Basically. sit in a safe space and text people. But I had to take a foreign language, and so I chose German, because why would I take Spanish living in California, right? Why would I take German where I'm going to use it every day? I was an idiot, but I was always fascinated by Germany. My family's from Denmark and Germany.
Right.
Although I've never been there. And so I thought it'd be kind of cool to learn the language. So I took German, I took French a little bit. My teacher, her name was Eva Klus, and she was German, born and raised in Germany. And during our course, she was talking to us about growing up in Germany as a child. The different foods, the culture and all the kinds of things that they come up with. And she introduces our class to Krampus. And I'm thinking, what is Krampus? And she's like, he's an evil Santa. And she goes into this whole story about how they were terrified as children to be bad, because you don't want Krampus to come visit you.
Yeah, because you're not going to just get a lump of coal in your stocking.
Yeah. And so it was one of those things where, I sat there and listened, but didn't understand really, that culturally, this is a terrifying being that we didn't have here in the United States.
Yeah.
Anyway, that was my first introduction into Krampus. And then, of course, as you get older and you learn more about it, then it's kind of cool. And yet, if I was a 6-year-old child again, and somebody told me that Krampus was coming, I'd probably wet the bed or, who knows what you're going to do, because it was terrifying.
Oh, yeah.
So I figured we might go, this is not going to be like our typical podcast where we talk about sightings and things of that nature, because I guess children are going to say that they've seen Krampus.
Right, because they get terrified with it. So their imagination.
And because of certain festivals and stuff there are. It's just like when our kids go to the mall and they see Santa, they're going to tell you flat out that they got to see Santa. They sat in his lap, blah, blah, blah. So these kids get to see Krampus. So it's very real.
Oh, yeah.
To them. In this podcast, though, we're just going to basically go over the story of Krampus.
Right.
And what he means, culturally. A description of Krampus, there are some variations, and it kind of depends because certain regions have a little bit different take on him, but not enough to go into all of it, right? So there is a general description of him that most people believe. He's very large in stature, and he's either hairy or furry, depending upon, again, the culture. So he's like take a goat, for example. A goat has that hollow hair.
Right.
That it's like an insulator.
Right.
For them. But you wouldn't really call it fur.
Yeah, exactly.
It's hair.
Yeah.
And then other animals have that nice, either soft or woolly type fur.
Yeah.
And so he gets described both ways, that he's either hairy, like a goat kind of hair, not human. Not like a hairy chest on a guy.
Yeah.
But actual, like, covered in hair or fur. And he's generally brown or black in color, mostly leaning towards black because he's very sinister looking, and very dark in color. His hands have those long taloned fingers, with the long grotesque fingernails.
Yeah.
Kind of like Disney depicts,
like a witch.
Witches, hands where they're that decrepit, arthritic-looking, skanky-looking hand with the long nails on it. So, he's got those kind of hands. He has what's described as a grotesque human foot. And so all I can picture is like a club foot or something.
Like some mangled thing. Like the guy's little hand on Scary Movie, but
yeah, exactly. Or no one wants to eat the mashed potatoes because he's got it in there. Yeah. So he's got this grotesque foot, while the other foot is a cloven hoof,
which makes me think that the hair is more goat-like because he's got the hoof.
Yes,
at least that's what I picture.
Yeah, and as we go into a little bit more of the description, he starts really resembling a goat is the bottom line.
Demon.
Yeah. So this cloven hoof, in some of the cultures, he has 2 hooves. The original description of him was the nasty human foot and a hoof, which is more terrifying.
Yeah, that foot is freaking me out.
I'd rather see the 2 hooves.
Yeah.
But he has long goat-like horns that curl out of the top of his head. He has fangs in some cultures. He has jagged, nasty teeth, like our gnome episode.
Yeah.
Hasn't brushed them in 1,000 years. And then he has this long, pointed, dragon-like tongue that drops out of his mouth and, like licks your face and stuff.
Right before he tortures you.
Right. So his face is described as being like mangled and deranged. His eyes are bloodshot red. And, this guy's just a creep, right?
Yeah.
His appearance clearly displays that he's like this half demon, half goat.
Right. Which is suiting.
When he's out and about, he's wrapped in chains. Religiously speaking, as religions came later, because he kind of predates Christianity, in the areas that he was brought up. Once the religious viewpoint came into account, they believed that the purpose of the chains was to symbolize the binding of Satan.
Like he was in control of him kind of thing?
Well, more along the lines of to show how evil he was. Like, Satan is supposed to be bound and thrown into the lake of fire and brimstone. Okay. And so this personification of the devil bound in chain, I think just kind of lend towards
the evil,
how evil he actually is. And so I think that's why they came up with, that concept of being wrapped in chains.
Imagine being a kid and you're hearing these stories, and right before you go to bed, you eat your schnitzel and you have a good time and you go lay down, and then all of a sudden you just hear chains rattling in the dark.
Could you imagine that?
No, you'd wet the bed. And
you would. There's no doubt in my mind. I almost peed myself right now.
Yeah, exactly.
But so sometimes the chains are adorned with bells of various sizes. And I always kind of picture the movie Krampus, which I love. I've already watched it.
I've been thinking about it ever since you've been describing it. That's all I can think about.
I've watched it 3 times this season already. It's not even Christmas yet.
I love it.
But he gives that gift of the little bell with Krampus on it. And I picture that. But he rattles those chains and he rattles those bells basically for like this dramatic effect to really get your attention.
It would be dramatic, yeah.
He carries what was called a root. And the root was a bundle of birch branches or rods. Like if you snapped a twig off of a tree, but you kind of trimmed it down so it becomes like a switch or something, know. And in some variations, in some other cultures, he just carries like a whip. The birch branches, I think, are the most classic because pretty much all of the depictions of Krampus that you see, he's got that fistful of branches in his hand that he's going to use. And then he beats the naughty kids with them. They get these lashes from him. That's just something that I guess if you went to bed at night and your parents told you that you've been bad, you're not going to have sugar plums dancing through your head. You're going to have these branches, lashing your skin,
whipping your back up,
which is just horrifying. But
I mean, that's if you're lucky you get that.
That's if you're lucky. And that's the whole point is the kids that got a beating, they're bad, but they're the lucky ones.
Right.
Because they just got a beating. Because he also is known to carry this like wicker basket on his back and or a sack, kind of like Santa's little sack of gifts. But his sack is not gift worthy. The purpose of it is to take truly evil children away to be tortured or drowned or eaten or, even worse, sentenced to an eternity in hell.
Now, you got to wonder, what are we talking? What are the levels here?
Like, what is the level of?
What, did you sneak a cookie and you lied about it to your mom and dad?
Yeah.
And so you get whipped with the branches?
Yeah.
And then if you talk back, are you still getting whipped with the branches, or now you getting kidnapped and eaten?
Disobedience of your parents,
level?
Is that like a capital punishment at this point? It is, and there is no accounting, not like a matrix that you can go to and look at and go, well, I didn't feed the dog this week, so that's 3 lashes.
Yeah, exactly.
I disobeyed my parents, or I smoked a cigarette in the alley, so now I'm destined to go to hell.
Burning in hell for eternity.
Oh, it's just terrible.
And I'm only 8 years old.
These poor little kids, man. It's crazy to think culturally what we do and the things that we tell kids. I mean, it doesn't matter what it is. The Rougarou and all these other little cryptids throughout the years that they've used them to literally cause mental
just think
issues with these poor little kids.
Just think of the drastic changes from different places to like now. Like, now we'd be like, hey, if you're bad, you're not going to get any presents.
Yeah.
Santa's going to bring you coal.
Yeah.
And that's how your Christmas is going to be. Whereas back then, they're like, if you're bad, you're either going to get beaten till your back is bloody, or you're going to get kidnapped and tortured in hell for all of eternity.
Or eaten by a
giant goat demon.
That's just incredible.
Kids have it easy now.
Yeah, they do. Well, that's because they got their cell phone and they're
exactly
on social media and getting their safe space. So
at least they got that.
Yeah. So getting into kind of the origin of Krampus and how he came to be, it's really unclear. And no matter how much you try and study this, everybody's going to have a different opinion. Let's just put it that way, because there's probably a lot of people out there that are going, no, he came from Germanic culture and blah, blah, blah. Other people are going to say that, no, it was more like Scandinavian or it was Norse or it was Bavarian.
Right.
They're going to be all over the map. And time-wise, they're going to be all over the map because there is enough evidence, I guess you could say, to say that Krampus dates back as early as like the 7th century. It's going back a long ways, right? And stories of Krampus started running rampant throughout 12th century Germany. However, they can't really find any written record of him until about the 16th or early 17th century. Krampus's name is believed to be derived from the old Bavarian Krampen, which meant dead, or the German word Kramp, which means claw.
And I mean, either one of those that's a good fit.
It's a perfect depiction.
You can't really say which one's which.
Right. I mean, he literally is the embodiment of death and evil.
Right.
And he walks around with those nasty club foot and a hoof and the mangled hands. And so, a claw, I can see where that would be a fitting description of what he might look like, I guess you could say. But the roots of the Krampus folklore has actually been traced back to like pre-Christian Alpine traditions. So before Christianity hit that culture, they believed in like Odin and other gods and goddesses. Valhalla was heaven. And before they even were introduced to Christianity, they had their own beliefs of gods and demons and ghosts and all these things that you kind of like would rule over the land. And it was believed that Krampus was part of this pagan ritual for the winter solstice and actually had nothing to do with Christmas at all. For those that don't know what the solstice was, that's just when the sun is at its highest point and lowest point for the north and the south poles.
Right.
And it creates the shortest day of the year and the longest night, which has always been the marking of the beginning of winter. So, according to all the legends, Krampus was the son of Hel, who was the Norse goddess of death and the underworld. But as Christianity started to spread throughout that Alpine region, somehow Krampus became associated with Christmas. And there's no really like definitive timeline of when that was. I do know that like in the 17th century is when it became more apparent that he was like a counterpart to Santa Claus.
Right.
But if you go through all the research and whatnot, there is no specific timeline as to when that belief started. So because we're going to go back centuries and centuries ago, it was paganism. And they saw him as this evil entity that came from the gods.
Right.
And then somehow, somewhere along the line, that evolved into he's like Santa's partner, which we'll get into in just a second. So he basically was this good versus evil, or like a yin and yang. You had Santa on one end rewarding children. You had Krampus on the other end punishing children.
Yeah.
So, I'd say it's a little worse than punishment, but I thought it would be kind of fun here because maybe a lot of people don't even know this part.
Right.
And I think it's important that you understand the role of Krampus through St. Nicholas.
Right.
I did a little research on that. I mean, I've always heard these stories, so I kind of knew this stuff anyway, but I figured I might as well try and be as accurate as possible. So St. Nicholas was actually a real person. He was born March 15th of the year 280, and he died December 6th, the year 343. He was a Christian bishop who was well known for helping the needy, the sick, and the poor. And he was especially kind to children, often giving them gifts for good behavior.
There you go.
So, yeah, you can already see where this is going. So one of the most famous stories about him tells about how he helped these three young sisters, and they were part of an extremely poor family. These people pretty much had nothing. And back in the day, even though this sounds weird, but the tradition back in the day was that when a woman married a guy, the woman's family would provide money to them, to either the husband or to the husband's family, and they called those dowries. I had to look that up because I wasn't aware of that traditional thing.
Right.
And so sometimes over the course of time, it turned out that it was started going the opposite direction, where the husband would pay the other family, because they were losing their daughter to him. And so there was a monetary exchange in exchange for her hand in marriage.
Right.
But back in this time, it was the bride's responsibility to pay the husband's family for taking her. So because of that tradition, their dad didn't have enough money to pay their dowry. So he was thinking about selling them into servitude because they couldn't become anybody's wives and be a part of society, that it was easier for him at that point to just sell them off as a slave, and then he'd have money and they didn't have to worry about ever being married, which was, it's a sad thought, but that's what he was planning on doing. So St. Nicholas actually hears of this, and he secretly went to their house on at least 3 separate occasions, and each time he left a bag of money. So the father was able to use the money so that at least one of his daughters could get married, and he paid her husband for taking her away.
Rightfully so.
Rightfully so, yeah. That should probably still be the tradition.
Yep, exactly.
But on the 3rd visit, he actually caught St. Nicholas in the house with this bag of gold as he's laying it down. And so he approaches St. Nicholas and he thanks him and tells him, this is unbelievable what he was doing. And, his generosity was off the charts, et cetera, et cetera. And so St. Nicholas goes on his way. After St. Nicholas dies, which is, years later after this incident, the stories of his generosity and his work for the poor spread globally, and he became known as the protector of children. And he was always associated with the gift giving.
Yeah.
So in the 1500s, a religious movement from the church discouraged the practice of honoring saints. But St. Nicholas remained an important person, especially in the areas of like Holland. And every December 6th, kind of honoring his death day, they celebrated the feast day of St. Nicholas. And during this feast, the children would put out their shoes on December 5th, so the eve of the St. Nicholas Day. And then when they woke up in the morning, they would find that St. Nicholas had left a little goodie in their shoes. During the 1700s, when the Dutch immigrants came to America, they brought the stories of St. Nicholas. He was known to them in their language as Sint Nicolaas, and they called him Sinterklaas for short. Right. That was his nickname, Sinterklaas. Well, in America, we just couldn't handle that.
Yeah,
right?
That's too much.
Too much for us. So he became Santa Claus instead of Sinterklaas. And instead of giving gifts on December 6th, we celebrate him during Christmas. So it's still kind of it's the wrong way to look at Christmas if you're a religious person, because we're supposed to be celebrating Christ.
Right.
But over time, back in the 1500s, they were celebrating the Saint Nicholas and giving gifts in his name or in his honor. And they rolled that into the Christmas holiday. So it was no longer traditional for this to be December 6th. America moved it to December 25th.
Because we do what we want.
Because we do what we want.
There's no other way to put it.
Their tradition had no business here in America, so we do what we want to do.
Yeah.
Now, as you can tell, this is one of the reasons why kids put stockings out.
Yeah.
So you hang your stockings on the fireplace waiting for your Santa to come by and fill it. If you look at their tradition, Sinterklaas would leave a little trinket in their shoes, and that somehow came to be in America, that it was in the stocking. But then there's 2 other explanations as to why America may have taken that as a traditional thing. And that is because the story that I just related, where he goes to the house and he leaves a money bag for the dad so that he could pay for his girls to get married.
Yeah.
The other story is that he would walk by and throw the bag through an open window, and the bag almost went into stockings that were hung by the fireplace to dry out. So they washed their socks, hung them on the mantle to dry, and these bags of money almost went into the stockings. And so it's another symbol of putting a gift in a stocking.
Right.
And then there's one other explanation, and that is that children way back in time, when they did believe in Odin and other gods and goddesses, Odin flew on a flying horse. And so the children would put hay and grain and oats and things in their stockings and put them out by the fireplace to feed Odin's horse if he was to come by.
Okay.
And so it depends what legend you want to go.
Right.
So you got St. Nicholas or you got Odin. And America chose St. Nicholas,
right,
renamed him Santa Claus. And then it was about, I think it was 1881 or something like that, where an American writer and comic strip guy drew a picture of what he thought St. Nicholas would look like. And he's the one that drew him in a red suit with the white fringe and all that. And so that's how Santa became Santa. He is a real person. They honor him by giving gifts to children, and he's a good guy.
Yeah.
And so that's where we get Santa Claus from. There you go. There's the legend of Santa and how he became what he is in America. But let's get back now to Krampus, because it's believed that a righteous, generous, and kind man such as St. Nicholas should not and would not ever punish a child, especially on the feast day of St. Nicholas. So during the 17th century, this is when Krampus was finally paired with St. Nicholas as a helper. His job strictly was to punish the little children that had misbehaved. So because Santa was not going to punish them.
Right. You can't have a saint do it.
Right. Now in America, he does, right?
Right. He gives you coal.
Our Santa Claus throws a lump of coal in your stocking. In those beliefs, St. Nicholas would never do something so
absolutely not
so heinous.
The goat demon would.
So this is the goat demon's job to put the disciplinary actions out onto these children. So on December 5th, the eve of the feast of St. Nicholas, Krampus would actually walk the streets, sometimes with St. Nicholas and sometimes by himself. In their view, it was America that did this red outfit with the white fringe and the jolly face and the corncob pipe and all the different little things that our Santa version had, because theirs he looked more like a king. He had this staff of gold and he was adorned in big robes and things of that nature. So he walked down the street like a king, like he was royal, while he's being followed by this demonic goat with a wicker basket on his back and a mangled foot, strolling down the street. And what they would do is they would go and visit the homes and different businesses and stuff, and they would talk to children about their behavior over the year and tell them basically what was going to happen to them. The good children would look forward to waking up to a little gift that St. Nicholas had left them, while the bad children could only look forward to waking up and nursing wounds from the beating that they were going to receive from Krampus. So, it's just sad thinking about it. But,
hilariously sad, but sad.
If you could only imagine now, you're laying in your bed and Krampus descends your chimney.
And you start hearing those bells, and maybe you think Santa, but then you hear it followed by the chains rattling, and you're like,
the big clomping of the hoof. And that nasty foot scratching along the ground with
his claws dragging the chimney.
And so he would come into their home, and he would approach this little child and wake them up. Of course, they're probably already awake and trembling.
Oh, yeah.
And he would use those birch branches or rods, whatever you want to call them, to beat that child according to their behavior. Which is still, that's kind of what we talked about earlier.
I'd really like to know.
Yeah. So is it, are they getting 15 lashes for something minor, or is it one, or is it a threat? I don't know. And nobody really can say.
Or is he unhinged like an angry drunk just beating the child?
I don't know, but I can just picture this poor little kid just bawling while he's just being pummeled in his bed by a goat.
And then imagine them waking up or getting up after that and trying to explain it to their parents as they're crying.
Oh, that's just terrible. And bloody sheets and stuff, from their skin being lashed open.
People probably think there's something wrong with us because we can't stop laughing.
I know. That's sick. But so they could get a truly severe beating from this demonic goat. But the children that were a little more on the evil side, and again, what's the cutoff point on that? I don't know. I mean, this could literally just be like being disobedient to your parents or,
back talking a little bit or something.
Yeah, but all they could look forward to was being captured and swept away by Krampus. So he'd snatch these kids up, throw them in that either wicker basket or a big bag. And I picture like Santa's bag.
Right.
There's just this almost velour-looking cloth, know, and just stuffed full of children that he's dragging away.
Well, and then with the basket, I think of like the old school mountain men when they'd work trap lines. That was a popular thing, was to carry those wicker baskets to throw the animals you captured in there,
right?
Instead of putting them bloodied and stuff in your like normal backpack. So
right, exactly.
Instead, he's tossing these bloodied, mangled kids into a wicker basket so he doesn't ruin his burlap sack.
Oh, it's just terrible. So he'd sweep these kids away, and he'd either drag them down into the underworld, which that's what they always called it, but they're referring to hell.
Right.
He's a demon out of hell, and he takes these kids to hell for all eternity. And that would be the worst fate, I would imagine. But it also, the legend says that these children could be tortured, drowned, eaten alive by the demonic spirits that are in hell.
And then I can only imagine what tortured would be, aside from getting beaten bloody with birch sticks.
Yeah.
Because that's torture enough.
That's bad enough, right? You wake up in the morning and you got nothing in your little shoe or stocking, whatever you've put out. Yeah. And all you have is scars to live with the rest of your life.
Yeah.
I would imagine that they'd be good for the next Christmas if they got to survive.
Oh, yeah.
So I guess it did have its place. Yeah. We can't do that to our kids nowadays. No. You'd have Child Protective Services in a second. But December 5th, that eve of St. Nicholas's Day, became known over time as the Krampusnacht, which is Krampus night in German. And despite several attempts over the years from the church to either discourage or suppress that practice of Krampusnacht. And their main reason for that was they said that it frightened the children too much. Krampus resembled the devil, and that it was a pagan ritual. And of course, they were trying to introduce Christianity to them, and they didn't want them worshiping Odin and different gods and things of that nature. So, they did everything they could to discourage that. But that tradition persisted and actually flourished despite the church's efforts to stop it. And so it started growing throughout the regions, and other places were doing it.
Well, we're built to rebel, so it makes sense that someone tells us to do not to do something. We're like, yeah, we're going to do it. I'd do it even more so now that you told me not to do it.
Right. So at this point, because the church failed, even some of the governmental agencies started to try and ban the practice of this Krampusnacht. Specifically in 1932, which, that's a lot later. So you had hundreds of years of
children being tortured.
And the whole concept of this evil demonic Santa, that's coming to snatch your soul.
Right.
That went on for a long time, but in 1932, Austria's Dollfuss regime, under what was called the Vaterlandisch, which is just the father's land front, And the Christian Social Party, which was kind of a right-wing party, they prohibited all Krampus traditions. And so they actually put an end to that in Austria for a short period of time.
Right.
And I believe it was like 1938, sometime between like 1938 and 1940, when the Hitler regime started running Nazi Germany. Hitler also attempted to ban all Krampus traditions, and he actually went so far as to try and attempt to transform Christmas tradition.
Of course he did.
Germany.
Right.
He hated the Jews.
Right.
And Christ was a Jew,
Yep.
so he didn't want to have anything to do with that. So he wanted Christmas to become a Nazi tradition, which failed.
Of course.
Again, because Christianity at this point, in the 1900s, it had swept through Europe. And so instead of worshiping Odin and other gods, most Germans, and I think I read that it was at least half of the population, if not more, were of Christian faith. So as soon as, Hitler was defeated and things got better for Germany, guess what came back in full force? All the Krampus traditions.
He lives on.
He lives on. And so even today, now we're talking years and years later and hundreds of years since the inception. Many of the Alpine countries, they continue to celebrate Krampusnacht with parades and festivals. And they go so far as to, which this cracks me up, they'll dress up like the townsmen, certain guys will just it's Krampusnacht, it's a big day of the year. They'll dress up as a devil. They run through the streets with like chains and bells and their birch rods, running through the town, chasing children and absolutely creating terror amongst all these little children.
I'd love to go to it. Because you got to imagine, one, that's hysterical. It's mean. It's a little mean, but it's hysterical. And then two, I think of all the good food they're serving during that,
I can't even imagine.
Yeah.
I want that schnitzel a la Holstein with the
sausages
cracked over it and the Jägermeister gravies.
Yeah.
And oh my Lord. Not to mention those German beers. I mean, you got to love a German beer. So anyway, during the 19th century, the Krampus carton became a very popular item. And basically all that was a greeting card that had Krampus on it.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. Yeah.
And they were vintage cards, I guess you could say. And on the outside of the card, it said, Gruß vom Krampus, which meant in German, greetings from Krampus. And it would always be accompanied by this picture of Krampus, like menacingly over a child, with his wicker basket on the back, and his hands out with the big tongue,
right,
about to touch the back of the kid's head and stuff. It was always some horrifying picture like that. But then on the inside, it would have some little comical rhyme or a little poem or something about,
I need one of these.
You better be good. Of course, we sing the song about Santa.
Yeah.
Where you got to be good. And you're not supposed to pout and cry and all that kind of stuff. But our kids get coal. These kids get eternal damnation. And or a physical beating beyond, anything.
Which is obviously the better
imagine.
of the two, but still.
Yeah, it's just horrifying. But these little Krampuskarten became really popular in all the European areas. And the older versions of Krampus were extremely frightening, where they literally would depict him as having that gangly foot, and the hoof and all that stuff. Whereas nowadays, and a lot of this is because of governmental involvement. I know like in the Bavarian governments and whatnot, they had put out like these things that Krampus was just this evil man. They were worried that children would actually develop mental issues over it. Again, it's the society, right?
Right.
In the 1700s, you would terrify your child into submission. In today's day and age, we want to make sure that, they're safe and that their mental stability is intact and stuff.
You wouldn't want them to have to deal with anything.
No. So Krampus now on the Krampuskarten are more like little cherub-looking things or more on the comical end, where it's kind of cutesy, you know, and he's...
Which is funny, too, because even that, I mean, I don't know, I can't remember if we talked about it before, but people always depict the cherubs of the Bible to be those cute little things when really they weren't. They were gigantic, terrifying warriors that stood at the gates to protect the garden.
You read like the biblical version of a cherub, you know, it was like a lion head.
Yeah, it's
horrifying. With a breastplate of armor. And
so they tried to revamp that with those little, and they still got it wrong.
Yeah, so, you know, now Krampus is not as scary.
I got to get my hold of one of those old cards.
I'll tell you
I'm sure they have a remake or something.
But I bet they're out there.
Yeah, we got to get one.
Yeah, absolutely got one.
It's going out next year as the Christmas card for the family.
Yeah, we should have a Creatures and Curiosities Krampus Christmas card
we
can send to everybody.
Yeah.
So another popular festivity that was held annually in Lienz, which is just a little township in the Austrian state of Tyrol. And apparently the Lienz district is comprised of like the eastern Tyrol area. They have this little thing called the Krampus Parade, which over there is known as the Perchtenlauf or the Krampuslauf, which basically it's a run. They get together, you know, we have a 5K for the American Heart Association. They have the Perchtenlauf. And what that does is it honors this century-old tradition where young men in the town dress up as mythical creature and they parade through the streets in ancient pagan rituals. And it's meant to disperse those winter ghosts again.
Yeah.
So they're going back into the tradition of the days of Odin and the gods and the winter solstice and the witches and the demons and all the things that would come at wintertime. Even if you watch Game of Thrones, where they're always, you know, winter is coming.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and then they had those night walkers and all the different, like, they're almost like demonic entities and ghostly kinds of things.
Yeah.
And that was truly the belief back in the day, that these things would come specifically at the winter solstice. So they have this little ceremony to scare off or ward off all these ghosts. Well, this gets into what we're going to be talking about down the road.
Yeah.
Okay. And so the Perchten, there was this lady by the name of Frau Perchta. And I don't want to get into it too much, but it's a horrifying story. This woman is not good. And she would go on these hunts and whatnot. And she was just this horrible witch from the winter solstice. And a lot of people, because she actually kind of predates Krampus, a lot of people thought that she was somehow involved with Krampus. I've even seen, like, when we get into like the little popularity phase, there was a movie called Mother Krampus, and it's a movie literally about Perchta.
Which I have to see now.
Yeah, you got to watch that.
Yep.
But she is not the mother of Krampus, no matter how much that little movie tries to decide it. Yeah. They're two separate entities. They're two different timelines. And that's something that we need to get into in a later podcast.
Yep.
Right? But these guys, they'll march around dressed up in these fursuits and these carved wooden masks, carrying cowbells to try and scare these horrifying things away. And that the Krampus run has really resurged in Austria, Germany, Slovenia, Hungary, Czech Republic, other areas of Europe. And it's actually now starting to gain recognition in the United States.
Yeah.
We have people doing the same types of little parades and stuff here, which is crazy because it's not our tradition.
Right.
But I guess we're going to steal it.
Yeah, that's what we do.
as Americans do. That's right. You know, I think it would be way more fun if we were in Germany around Christmas time.
Oh, yeah.
And you got to actually see their traditional stuff versus
our depiction of it.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah, it'd definitely be a lot more fun. So Krampus has gained popularity in many, many areas. And in the United States, since like the mid-2000s, it became popular here. There were movies made. There's, you know, festivals and different things. And I think it was in the year like 2010, the Americanized version of the Krampusnacht began like in South Carolina and Oregon, and different states were starting to have some fun with it.
Right.
Terrifying our own children over here. I guess we had to do that. And By 2014, there were over 30 different Krampus celebrations being held across the United States. Some of them take place on December 5th the way they should.
Right.
Right. While others, they just try and get it close to that date. Probably they're closer to Christmas time, which that's not what the tradition was. So, we had to ruin that.
Yeah.
But,
which is, why? Just do it on the 5th.
Do it on the 5th.
Just do it on the 5th.
That's what it's about. That is what Krampusnacht is.
And in theory, if you're looking to make money, which some of these people probably are, the 5th would be better than closer to Christmas because most people travel for Christmas.
Right.
So you might not have people in your town because they've traveled for Christmas.
Right. And if you're trying to terrify your child into submission,
the earlier the better.
The earlier the better.
Yeah.
You don't want to wait till Christmas. Yeah. That's kind of stupid, but whatever. Let's see. Lastly, I would say that some of our movies have been pretty good, though. So,
the best one, of course.
2015, released on December 4th, which is pretty close to being absolutely spot on.
I'll allow it with that. Allow it with that. Yep.
That was probably a Friday night or something, right? At the movie theaters, and they didn't want to wait till the 5th. But they came out with the movie Krampus, and it's the one with Adam Scott.
Yeah, which is the best one. Again, I haven't seen all of them, so I guess I can't say, but it's definitely
absolutely
our favorite.
Fantastic movie. I have literally watched it 3 times.
Yep.
Already this year.
It's become it's like Christmas Vacation to me now. It's become tradition to watch those movies.
You have to watch it, and if you don't, it isn't Christmas.
Yep.
But anyway, it's a comedy horror for anybody who has not seen it, and it is worth a watch.
It's hysterical.
They stay pretty close to what Krampus is.
Right.
The description is pretty good. He has 2 hooves in that movie. He doesn't have the ugly clubfoot thing. But he's got the long taloned fingers, the tongue that comes out and licks little Max's face. Yeah. He's accompanied by demons and toys that are of demonic nature.
Yep.
And he drags everybody off to hell.
Yeah.
It's the perfect depiction. They nailed it in my book because they usually ruin folklore, in the movies. They want to put their own Hollywood version.
Yeah.
I loved this movie. This isn't the only one, though. They did come out with Krampus the Reckoning. There's Krampus Christmas, Krampus Unleashed, Krampus the Christmas Devil, and most of these are going for the horror.
Right.
The one with Adam Scott, that one's just, it's fun because kids can watch it without gore and being scared. A little kid might still be scared.
Right, yeah.
But
don't show it to your 5-year-old. They'll probably be scared.
Not the 5-year-old, but definitely, like a 10, 12, 15-year-old kid, whatever.
It's good because it's got the laughs, but it's a good story. It's got a good story. Like you said, it stays pretty close to the tradition.
Yeah.
Or the lore, and it's just good.
Yeah. I loved it. And then the last movie that I was saying earlier, the one that's called Mother Krampus, is about Frau Perchta. And she's not Krampus's mother, so I got to watch the movie.
Right.
To see where they're going with it. But it's some Hollywooded version.
Yeah.
But when you get to know about her, she's, I think, worse than Krampus.
I could see why people would make the jump, Because, of course, who would be worse than him? His mother, right?
Yeah, right.
Who taught him how to be this way, I guess, is if you could put it that way.
But then his traditional mother being Hel, and she's the goddess of the underworld. That's, I don't know if you can get much worse than that.
Yeah, if you're running hell, you're at the pinnacle of evil there.
Yeah, I think that's all we have.
Yeah.
On Krampus, because like I said,
it's just all legend and
sightings.
Yeah.
It's a story. It's been around forever.
Yeah.
I do like the fact that they took that tradition and combined him with Santa Claus.
Yeah.
Even though that wasn't the original thing. I do like it because it is the antithesis of good versus evil, right?
Yeah.
You got Santa over here rewarding kids, and this one's beating them to death.
Yeah. Or torturing them for eternity.
And it's perfect.
Yeah.
And I love the whole concept behind it.
Well, that really is the concept of good and evil, right? You have God and you have the devil.
You have, God and the devil.
Yeah.
Right.
So
in this case, it's the saint and the demon.
Right.
Anyway, hopefully that cheers you up for Christmas.
Yeah.
And when you wake up on Christmas morning and you're not in bloodied sheets
and you were good,
you get to stroll out and you have a little gift under the tree.
Yeah.
You'll know that Krampus was held at bay and it's a good life.
Yeah.
If you wake up in the morning and you're pretty sore and you notice some blood spots.
You got some things to reevaluate.
Yeah, and you got coal or a birch rod or something in your stocking.
Or if you wake up and you're in the bowels of hell, then you know.
Yeah, that's not a good thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're just a couple of days away from Christmas. I'm looking forward to it.
Yep.
And some of the kids are coming to visit, and hopefully it all goes off without a hitch.
Yeah, it will.
Yeah. Hope so. I think on our next episode, we probably ought to get into, we might as well continue this because it is the holiday season.
Yeah. It's still winter solstice.
Winter solstice. And Miss Perchta.
Yep.
She sticks around until like January 6th or something
so
like
it's perfect.
that before she goes away. So our next episode comes out for that first week of January. So I think we ought to touch on Frau Perchta and another horrifying holiday witch. And her name was Frau Gaud. Yep. And both German and Bavarian traditional people, again. Yep. And again, these predate Christianity, going back to the gods and goddesses of the Norse.
Yeah.
But they're very interesting. They're very frightening. They're very gory. And it should be a lot of fun.
Yeah. I can't wait.
Yeah. So join us in a couple of weeks after you've gotten burned out on eggnog and you're starting the beginning of the new 2025 season.
Yep.
You'll enjoy it, I think.
Yep. Thanks, guys. Merry Christmas. Thanks for joining us today. If you enjoyed the show and you want to help us out, then go ahead and give us a follow, leave us a review, and don't forget to turn on the automatic download button so you don't miss any upcoming episodes. And as always, if you've had any experiences, stories, thoughts, comments, or questions, we'd love to hear from you. Send us an email to cryptidfanatic@gmail.com. Let us know if you'd like to be on the show or just have your story featured during one of our episodes.